Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Compliance to Help the Customers. I used to work on the public help desk in tech support for a large UK electrical retail chain, call center based in Nottingham. If a customer had bought an extended warranty and the customer's PC was sent away for repair, but for whatever reason took longer than 6 weeks to fix, the customer was entitled to a refund or replacement. This was known as the 6-week rule. But the internal company rule was only if the customer asked for it. If you were observed just offering it, it could lead to a disciplinary, as you were technically costing the company money, so we couldn't just tell the customers about it. I thought this was shady, as the customers had paid for it as part of the overpriced extended warranty. Some people just didn't read their instructions or didn't really understand computers and all the paperwork that came with them. A lot of our customers were of the "where's the any key" type. The relevant paragraph was buried in the terms and conditions. As you can imagine, some people would be getting rather frustrated after waiting 6 weeks for their PC to come back. So as the first line support person, I got the brunt of their frustrations. If they were rude or obnoxious, I would apologize and make them wait longer for their repair. But if they were nice and respectful, I would ask if they had the extended warranty documentation in front of them. Then ask them to read out loud from the terms and conditions. As soon as they read over the part that mentioned the 6-week rule, I would say, "Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. Would you like me to arrange a replacement or a refund for you?" Most either didn't know it was there or didn't realize that's what it meant, and were happy that I could help. And since it was the customer who had first mentioned the 6-week rule, I couldn't get in trouble either. The next story is called All or Nothing. This happened many years ago when I lived on the East Coast in the early 90s. I owned an apartment but hated living in the city I was in, so I moved back to my hometown. I bought a house there and listed my old one for sale. After a year with no offers and the rent I was making on the apartment not covering my expenses, I called my bank to discuss it with them. First, they said you've never been late on a payment, so we won't discuss anything with you. Okay, fine, I missed the next payment. Then I sent in a check for a partial payment based on what my expenses for the apartment were. The bank sent it back, saying they wanted full payment or nothing. So I said okay and sent them nothing, and instead deposited the check in a separate account. They then told me the reason I couldn't sell the apartment was that I wasn't asking enough for it, which I realized makes no sense. They then told me they had appraised it as a 2-bedroom apartment, even though it was a 1-bedroom and I'd just have to live with that. I told them since they had appraised it so much over my mortgage, they should be happy to take the apartment, sell it and keep the difference. Of course, they said no. They continued with this nonsense for over a year. In the meantime, I found new tenants who wanted a lease with an option to buy. After several months, they decided to buy it. I called the bank and said I have a buyer. I'll cut the bank the difference between the mortgage and the sales price. They agreed. Right before closing, they tried to tell me that they would only agree to this if the apartment was vacant despite the buyers already living there. I said what the heck and told my lawyer, who said I shouldn't bother talking to the bank. The closing date came and the bank signed off on the sale but didn't say anything about the money due to the missed payments. They just wanted the check for the remaining original mortgage. The bank then reported to the credit bureaus that they had foreclosed. I disputed it and showed the paperwork from the sale, so they deleted the so-called foreclosure from my credit report. The third story is called Compliance to the Minute. My neighbors are mostly lovely. Even the one called First Love of Chainsaws, Leatherface. Lovely chap, always willing to help out, especially if there's a fallen tree or overgrown hedge. Leatherface and Mrs. brought a rundown old house, really only fit for demolition and rebuild, next door but one to the only really horrible neighbor, known as Bootface. Bootface is loud, screams at her kids, partner, dogs never stop barking, escape and try to attack anyone they can. A general pain. Bootface put a long, detailed, whingy objection to Leatherface's planning application, including a request there be no work before 8:30 AM, and only weekdays due to noise. It's farming land all around, so there's often early to late noise if the season is right for harvest, plowing or whatever. It's not the suburbs. Planning permission is granted, with a condition of no noisy work before 8, Monday to Saturday. Bootface is even more miserable and unpleasant. Leatherface makes sure he always makes random noise on point 8, because he can. I'm pretty sure he just whacks a metal hammer on a metal pipe or runs his chainsaw collection up to make sure they are ready for helping any other neighbors. Bootface abuses Leatherface's delivery drivers and posts vitriol on local groups, then tries to sell her house for ages and fails. Possibly partly due to neighbor disputes she is obligated to disclose. When a sale is finally underway, knowing how keen Bootface is on planning procedure, someone reports her for breach of planning and she has to apply for retrospective permission, which takes a few months. Permission doesn't come through until just after the date the buyers would have saved a big chunk of money due to the stamp duty holiday. They pull out. Bootface is stuck with a house she can't sell, with all her neighbors notified of her planning breach, and Leatherface's regular 8 o'clock clang clang clang, knowing he and her are perfectly compliant now with all permissions. The last story is called Platinum Certification. So I was reminded of this recently, though the specific incident occurred almost 6 years ago. The company I worked for at the time had a tiered training system. Bronze tier meant you were qualified to do your job. Silver meant you'd gone the extra mile to really learn the ins and outs of the job and could be used to train new people in your job. Gold meant you had mastered your current position, and Platinum was generally intended to be the stepping stone to be cross-trained in different departments. Typically, Platinum training in one department was roughly equivalent to half silver in 2 or 3 other departments. So, like being Platinum trained in repair agent meant you could lend a hand in home installation and car installation, that sort of thing. Well, my store manager decided he wanted to get the bragging rights of having his entire Geek Squad department Platinum certified. So he started hounding us to do our Platinum certifications. Not actually giving us time to do them, mind you, because outside of Bronze the training was voluntary. For the position I held at the time, the Platinum level training was intended to be a stepping stone into management. As a part of that, it included several transcripts from several books on management. So, to be Platinum certified, I had to finish 14 modules, with each module involving a 200 to 400 page reading assignment, followed by a report on the reading assignment to be graded by the manager. And also 4 one-on-one training sessions with the store manager, on topics such as manpower management, customer reading and personality conflicts. All in all, each module was estimated to take between 10 to 14 hours worth of work before a further 3 to 4 hours of work with the manager. This was all something that the manager was apparently unaware of, because when I asked him where he wanted me to turn in the first report, he brushed me off, saying the modules don't have assignments. Only to have him come back 3 more times and get on my case and the rest of my department's case about being Platinum, but then inferring that he's not going to read the assignments and sign off on the modules. So do this training that I won't sign off on. Oh, and do it on your own time. Surprise surprise, we weren't interested in wasting our personal time like this. So initially we ignored it, until he really started pushing the issue. Remember how each of the modules for the Platinum training from my position had a 200 to 400 page reading assignment? Well, using the store's printer, I printed each one of them, in color. Actually did the reading on the first one and wrote the paper, and went to talk to the manager about the report. I hounded him for a week about it until I was able to corner him and show it was about the Platinum training. He was totally caught off guard that he was expected to play school teacher and visibly horrified that he would have to do so for 14 modules plus 4 one-on-one sessions for 5 people. So that was the last we heard about him demanding everyone in the department be Platinum. Remember how I printed out the readings? Well, that prompted an investigation to find out why the store had gone through more color toner in 2 months than it had in a year prior. They eventually found that the majority was from the Platinum learnings. When they asked why, we pulled out the multiple email messages the store manager has sent us regarding Platinum, including the parts where he said if we needed to print something, we could use the store printers. Turns out most of the Platinum modules just have a 2 to 3 page worksheet and maybe a checklist. Some have a 20 to 30 page resource document, but only the Platinum from my department had 300 page books. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. And I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.